in it, you know, and I just kind of, that's the one thing I did is try to understand each heading, you know, and it, the one thing I get out of it is that the trying to, is just the urgency of developing a relationship with the imaginal world, you know, the world of images, you know, it's just is that nothing begins until you have a relationship with the imaginal world, you know. Since they're going to do a little bit of a, I mean, they're going to start something about 10:45. I just thought I'd try to get through some of this a little bit, just start a little bit early, but I'm going to break it up into real small parts so that and there'll be, you know, we can comment on them when we're done. So I was just going to start off with, you know, I had numbered all these parts. There was actually 18, but I numbered 7. I only counted 17 when I counted them. Hey, Charles, happy birthday. Isn't it your birthday today? Yeah. I think it is. We just went through your dream too. I just kind of.
Oh, okay, cool.
Gave him your dream a little bit. It was, we had a pretty good discussion about the, you know, you're in the school, you don't want to go to school, and then you come out and you see John, the crippled blind person who's expert in languages, and then move into the faculty begs you to stay. You won't stay, so they give you a fish, and then you go to the graveyard and throw the fish on the ground and put them in the trash bin. And you know, why would the professors give you a going gift to the fish? Anyway, it was a very interesting dream, and we had a little pretty good discussion. But
cool.
I just thought I'm just going to try to go through some of this because it's so. If we actually say it out loud, it's so profound. I mean, I just can't believe. You know, the second generation of after Jung was, people say they wrote more clearly than Jung did, you know, and more. I mean, because Jung was trying to keep people from thinking that he was a mystic, you know. So he tried to write very with, you know, like Mysterium Conjunctionis has 2,800 footnotes in it, you know, and so I mean he tried to write for you know, he didn't speak this way in seminars, let's put it that way. You know, he wrote a little bit different, a little harder to understand. But anyway, Hillman is kind of not exactly a second generation. He's like 2.1, you know, because he did know Jung. He says that he sat knee to knee with him several times, you know, is what he said. But he still writes with such exceeding clarity. You know, I think, especially in the early years, the later years, if you read him, you won't get that flavor. He seems to start for some reason to write for more of a popular audience, you know. But anyway, I'm just going to go through. I'm actually just picking the good parts. You know, I could go through each part, but I'm going to try to just pick some of the good parts if we have discussion. But, you know, first he gives this case for personifying, you know, and he just mentions that the Greeks had shrines and temples for fame, insolence, you know, night, ugliness, timing, being, you know, perfectly timed, hope, victory, fortune, forgetfulness, modesty, mercy, and peace. And what he's saying, then when we don't provide a receptacle for these images, he says when we don't give them recognition, he says they become neuroses, you know. And actually, when you live in a realm without any deities, you know, I mean, inside, say, the modern, if you're a modern agnostic, you know, who has no religion, I mean, the only place you find these deities is through neuroses, you think. You know, it's a sense, or could be just a sense of malaise or something. But that's what Jung said, that it was only through a very impoverished world of the symbolic would we find the daemons within us. You know, and this is sort of the return to Greece, you know, which he'll talk about later. You know, but anyway, all of those. Hi, Lewis and Jan. Just getting started here. I just starting a little early, cheating on this side of 10. You know, not doing too much here, but anyway, and then Plotinus, who Edward Edinger said adumbrates Jung, or you know, he's sort of seems Plotinus seemed to be a Neoplatonist, was very much of Jung's philosophy or approach. You know, you know, like we'll hear later that the Greek mythic world was not really a religion. It was a vast psychology, you know, full of daemons, and that's why everyone had their own personal daemon then, you know. So it was a real soul making time in Greece. You know, it was a time of soul making. You know, but anyway, Plotinus said that the erections of shrines to things like night, ugliness, timing, hope, fortune, forgetfulness, modesty, he says, showed insight into the nature of the all. In other words, you make a shrine to night, then you have made a shrine to all. And you know, Hillman says we do that today with capital letters. He says he says there's a vast difference between this and this. Let's see. He says if you see this, he says it just jumps off the page at you. You know, the fact that you've capitalized night makes it a living presence, you know. And he, you know, quotes, or Jung quotes one of his favorite poets. Is, I don't know if it was one of his favorite poets, but it was a poet he quotes. But and he liked it. His name was Charles Péguy. He was a French poet. And he writes, "Oh, my daughter Night, the most religious of my daughters, the most pious of all my daughters, of all my creatures, you are the one who is most in my hands, the one who most completely yields. You glorify me in sleep more than your brother Day glorifies me in work. You glorify me more in sleep than your brother Day glorifies me in work. Oh, my daughter Night." You know, I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful poem, you know. And he also quotes Nietzsche, "The night is also a sun, and 'tis night, and now do all fountains speak louder, and my soul also is a bubbling fountain." Well, you know, when you treat night that way, you know, and you also treat hope that way and victory that way, and you have a shrine for them, we'll see what happens. It is it's a real way of liberation, you know. And hi, Mary. I didn't see you come. I guess I did see you come in, but I didn't say hi. Okay. Anyway, the Plotinus goes on that, erections of shrines to such energies within us, psychic energies within us, which was very, since Greek, all these gods and all this, you can go into these Greek myths and they are so, they speak, they just have such, they're like dreams. I mean, they just tell you exactly what's going on in the psyche. I mean, you can take the sea foam born Aphrodite, or Actaeon getting beset by his own hounds when he looks on the soul, Artemis, with not with what she needs, which is a relationship, eros. He looks on her with animal lust, so he gets devoured by his own animals. I mean, it's just wonderful psychic things. But we'll go into why this is so wonderfully important, and something that we lost through what Jung or Hillman, I think. Jung also kind of refers it to this, the monotheism of consciousness, of making consciousness and ego a god. This monotheism, where there's only this searing spirit and the banal ego. And then you make the ego a god, you inflate it. Compare that with what we're going to talk about in this middle realm, oh, my daughter night, the most religious of my daughters, you are the one who is most in my hands, the one who most completely yields, and think of the moon, and what the moon says, it's just such beautiful. And this is the whole idea of personification and active imagination, and living this life of relationship with the inner energies, the inner psychic energies, by giving them names, and then having a relationship with love, or with combat, or whatever. At least having some kind of a relationship with them is liberates us from our neuroses, because at least it's a healing enterprise. And anyway, so this Plotinus says the presence of the divine is more secured when appropriate receptacle is elaborated, a place especially capable of receiving some portion or phase of it, reproducing it, representing it, serving as its mirror to catch an image of it, So personifying not only discriminates in the receptacle, but then we now can have a relationship with it. We can love it. We can talk with it, and we can feel it in our hearts in personal form. And then he mentions the things about the capital letters. When you capitalize something, it just jumps off the page. It's a living being when it's has a capital letter. And so images of the heart penetrate through outer appearances to the interior image, and he mentions, the difference between sense perception and a perception that, and the attitude of Michelangelo, which he says is Bacon, Francis Bacon and Galileo, we're emphasizing sense perception. Michelangelo, in his realm of personifying the images, says perception is secondary to imagination. That through imagining through and beyond what the eye sees, in other words, that the sense perception is secondary to the inner, the image in the heart. So love and personifying are interdependent. To love, we must personalize everything. We only love what is like ourselves. Love personalizes. Love personalizes only that which is like it. You know, the feeling of the world, the understanding of it needs to be mythopoeic. There needs to have a symbol. And the difference between myth and mysticism, you know, myth is the is soul making, where mysticism is kind of leaving, is myth making or soul making is making the divine shine radiantly through images or through those things that we see, where mysticism is taking us out of this world into unity. And so there's a difference between the the movement from the mythic world, which is this world of the um, soul making, versus the mystic world. So that, and then you got the so this. Let's see, personifying is the way of knowing that which is invisible and hidden in the human heart. So it's hidden in the human heart, and it's not transcendent. It's in our hearts, you know. So what we're trying um, to reveal is what is invisible and hidden in the human heart, not some light that's outside of us, some unity that's outside of us. We'll get to the whole point of all of this is just the wonderful earthiness of this thing. And you know, the fact that Hillman is linking it with Greek religion, where Jung linked it with alchemy, but they have a similar um, uh, focus. I just lost my mouse. Just a second here. I'm not very good at the mouse. This thing. But anyway, so what we do when we do personifying is we return the abstract and the dead to human shapes. It's an epistemology of the heart, allowed not just to children, madmen, poets, or pagans. It's also allowed to us who may have found ourselves in a psychological malaise because we are so impoverished from the symbol world. This is the way that we heal ourselves. In alchemy, you know, we do not need to be saved or redeemed. We are the ones who redeem the divine that's trapped in ourselves, that which is invisible and hidden in the human heart. And so it comes down to it's knowing through understanding or knowing through explaining, you know, knowing through personifying or knowing through scientific objectivity, you know, which is the one that is the healing human form of soul making. You know, soul is not an objective fact that requires explanation. Soul is a subjective experience which requires understanding. And the secret of personifying attracts newer and deeper efforts to understand. So the more we personify, the deeper our understanding is, and and it always is always new. You know, the inexhaustible joy of life invincible, the cornucopia, the grail that keeps pouring forth into the world, the continual cycle of rebirth. You know, the personifying always is a passionate engagement. You know, we don't ever ask, are the things alive or dead? Are these real or my own projections? That's not personified. Myths don't ever possess such either or language. Worlds and the gods are alive or dead according to the condition of our souls. And then he comes up with this wonderful summary, and then we'll stop. The thing is, this is so unbelievably rich. Hi, Adam. I didn't, and Marina, both you.
Hi.
Hi. I just kind of finishing up here a little bit of a part here. I was trying to hit the highlights because there's just so much here. We could spend 3 weeks on it, but anyway, it ends up with this wonderful statement of Walter F. Otto. And I don't know if you ever heard of Walter F. Otto, but he wrote a book called The Homeric Gods, which if you go get it on Amazon, I think it costs $595, but you can get it free from the library in some library in India, in a PDF, but he was supposed to be the absolute master at the of the psychology of the Greek mythos. See, what Hillman says is that the Greek mythos is not really a religion. It's just this huge psychology. And so he's approaching this way of soul making, and he says it in a way I've never heard before. I mean, I've never heard anyone talk this way before, but it's so beautiful, where Jung approached it through originally the Gnostics and then alchemy. It's also, I think, a legitimate way to approach it through the psychology of the Greek, the psychology of the Greek myth, which is constructed like a dream. The pantheon of the Greek religion is very similar to any one of our dreams at night. There's all these very real figures, and yet what do? They are in a drama all the time. So the realm of images is not a realm of static images. It's not just the realm of images. It's the realm of images and story, and that's the dream world. That's the psychic world. Jung says that images are all psyche, and psyche is constructed of images. But then when you give them names, that's a different story. If you give the image a name, we'll get to that point later, where the way that this girl saves her son from the wood nymph is to guess the name of this Rumpelstiltskin, because when she names it, it changes it completely. It sort of it takes it out of her ego and depotentiates it a little bit. So there's a distance between her and the wood nymph. When she doesn't know its name, it can take her child away from her, or her newborn thing away from her. But when she knows the name, she can put it over here, and then she can keep the ego can hold on to what it's lost. But anyway, I'm just going to finish up with this, this first chapter, our first section. There was 18 sections. I'm picking the best ones. This was the case for personifying. Anyway, Walter F. Otto says that, let me see. And I had a picture of him. Yeah, here he is. That's Walter F. Otto. Quite a guy, really. I mean, he's, it's just wonderful to find these late 19th, early 20th century scholars that are just absolutely, Edward Gibbon and, all these people that just know everything about everything. But anyway, he says this is Walter Otto's statement on personification, and he actually uses these terms too. We don't. What Hillman says in the end, we do not actually personify at all. Mythic consciousness is personifying. And we experience it nightly in our dreams. We didn't create the dreams; they happened to us. The images existed before there was any attempt to personify them. And in dreams, every image is personified, and that's why shouldn't our psyche be constructed that way too? That's the way our dreams speak. So anyway, this is what Walter Otto says: there's no such thing as personification. There's only depersonification. That's like I'm trying to think of Rudolf Otto, I think his name was. Wasn't he the theologian that wanted to demythologize everything? And he says there's no mythologizing, which is is different than mysticism. Mythologizing is soul making. Mysticism is something else. There's only demythologizing, and he says the question is not how man ever came to the gods, but how did he ever come away from them? I mean, it's this sense of that. And it's actually, I think, a great advancement in the evolution of consciousness was that we did develop this great separation of ego from nature, to where it's almost, at the point where there is no connection anymore, and then it becomes its own, when spirit and soul are combined, Hillman says, then ego becomes the God. I mean, you have the transcendent God, nothing in between. And so ego becomes almost deified, at that point. And the opposites are much more stark when you have only two. But if you have this middle realm, which is populated with all those things, then all these different energies, which now separate someone from the oneness and unity. You have this middle realm of the soul, and then you have ego consciousness, which soon learns as it interacts with all these middle realms. I am not the master in my own house. So it's a really good way of losing inflation of that. The ego's so willful, when it starts to have relationship with these figures through personifying, then it loses its inflation. But anyway, that's the first section. Does anyone have any comments that they want to make, and or any questions? Take a little.
I'll just one thing.
Or I could just.
One thing that occurred to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, go ahead. Either. Why don't you go, Maggie, and then let Miles. Miles, since Maggie hasn't said anything yet, then Miles, you're up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I read about it, and it's a very beautiful book, may I say. Very rare do people write like this any longer. It's very detailed, and it's a very ambitious book in trying to explaining what soul is about, which kind of shocked me, because most of the time it's it was dealing with something else, but rather soul is the whole thing. And when you were talking about Greek mythologies and the personification of that,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of experienced it a bit when I first started the therapy session with a psychotherapist. And she's a Jungian, and it happened in like the first two trays of my sand play trays, and the Poseidon, it came up. And it kind of shocked me, because I never I read about Greek mythologies in literature class, which was like college years, long time ago. I never experienced that as something that would touch my life, or would that be something that's relevant to me at all. But it just suddenly pops up in the Sand play. And in a tray, it clearly points out that Poseidon is leading the way of the unconscious to bring out dreams in turbulent sea of unconscious in the Sand play, in my tray. So which it started to shock me a bit, because all the time I've been regarding that as just pure myth, and thinking it's just, well, why am I paying money to play with sand? And why am I paying so much money to play with these figures? But it just shocked me how much truth it is inside when I read more about Poseidon and other figures when I try to do some sand play. So when I read this book, the first chapter, it touches me more, that not only from a Jungian perspective, but from a post-Jungian perspective, that how it's related to our soul. Not just that it is, it's like what it says is very true, and it happened in my meditation, is when we try to put something into labeling, it becomes a lost in context, and we try to judge it, and with our ego, saying that it's just a labeling or something like that, and it lost the context inside. But now we are experiencing it as I experience in my dreams or in sand play, and it's almost like an organic process. Or it's not almost like, it is an organic process. It's not something that, as you said, made up in dreams, or it just came and happened, and it shocked me how much inside landscape of myself that I don't understand at all. And all these mythical figures, what does it have to do with my life? That is more than literature, that I have barely understand about it, besides when I was young, reading literature in class, or watching movies or drama. That's it to me. But then I never understands it. Yeah. So
the word organic is really granular. The truth, there's two words for truth in the Greek vocabulary. One is, truth is that which sprouts up from the earth of its own accord. Now this to me is the unconscious and the personal relationship with the unconscious. A living thing sprouts up from it, and Poseidon is the master of this realm of images where things come up. So I mean, you've named the unknown. You named it Poseidon. So now it has a name, or at least there's an aspect or a face of it that has a name. Now, Miles, why don't you say what you were going to say? Are you there, Miles? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, just a quick comment about dreams. I had one last night, and very quickly. My wife comes from British Columbia, in a very beautiful spot where they actually have fruit trees, and they can grow wine, grapes, I should say, and make wine. Anyway, so I had this, and she's always kind of a little resentful, in a sense, that I took her out of that beautiful part of Canada and brought her to Calgary, which is colder, and we don't have fruit trees and such. Anyway, so I have this dream last night where we're looking for a house out where she was born in British Columbia, and we find this house, and okay, let's buy it. We buy this house, and then the dream, like, it's weird. One dream can take you through a long time span. And so all of a sudden now we own this house, and we realize that it's in a gravel pit. and there's like earth movers, and there's a highway just really close. So there's a lot of highway noise, road noise. And I was like, why did we buy this place? And now we're stuck with it. And we have to make the payments and pay the utilities. And anyway, I just thought it's interesting how our brain can be so creative to make these
Well, yeah, and
movies in our heads.
yes, I mean that's what Hillman is kind of making the link between if our dreams are constructed this way, if they're full of personified things that personify different energies, and look at all the ones that Jung named, shadow, anima, animus, wise old man, wise old woman, great mother, all of these images and there's so many other things. The anima can be the nymph, the sibyl, the muse, the landlady, the innkeeper. There's all these different images that she can get. But when Maggie mentioned Poseidon, Charles, don't you have some relationship with Poseidon? Didn't you tell me something about you and Poseidon?
No, but I have a lot of water imagery in
Yes.
my dreams.
Mm.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I was wondering who was somebody mentioned that Poseidon was really important to them recently. I can't remember who that was. Oh, it must have been Idris. Yeah, it was Idris that told me that. But go ahead, Kevin. Did you have something?
Yes, yeah, just something very quickly. Hillman I found somewhat interesting. I do find at least Hillman somewhat at times can be too much on soul. And yes, so I feel like Hillman when he talks about psychology or his analysis is coming from a soul. Like I think he identified himself as an INTP, and INTP usually have introverted thinking, and so they link things conceptually. Like Immanuel Kant, the Critique of Pure Reason is just pure INTP writing. It's like hardcore INTP. But Hillman doesn't struck me as a hardcore INTP. I think it's because he is somewhat developed psychologically, but I feel like he is perhaps analyzing things from an animal level, from a soul level. And so when he writes, it's just, like animals, just like birds, it's full of adjectives. It's full of adjectives like magnifying glasses, and things becomes, and he does it obviously to make room for the psyche and to make it give it justice, basically. But at the same time, I also feel like there is a point where we have to just break it down, like Jung does with conceptualizing, and there's just a point where we have to destroy the wholeness in order to bring the wholeness back again. And so I agree with what Hillman does, but like I read this book on animal presence, and I didn't get much from it. It was just too abstract. It was too anima. It was too bird-like. It just flew away, and so that I felt like Jung would, I feel at least at that point would. Yeah, it depends like what you're trying to get out of the dream in certain time in certain context. But I just felt like I wanted to share that it is something to have in mind when listening to Hillman, that I think is coming from an animal level. So the glasses he used to analyze becomes obviously amplified from a elusive sort of point of view.
Well, they call him the jazz musician of Jungian psychology, and we're concentrating on his early works because later he tries to, I don't know, I don't want to describe it. I mean, the early works are very good, but Jung himself would describe him not as a conceptual thinker, but he'd be like what Edward Edinger said was the greatest intuitive thinker who ever lived. I mean, and what he says about being an intuitive thinker is that he's an empiricist. He doesn't invent concepts. These are things that he has observed. I mean, if you see how long, he always would spend 14 years with anything before he would introduce it to the public. You know, like in the case of psychological types, I think he compressed it a little bit, but you should see the history of the psychological types. You know, it starts out with 2, then it goes to 4, and then he goes to 8, you know, and he never mentioned the auxiliaries. I mean, a little bit, but not much. You know, it was more, and of course, he wasn't really interested in your dominant type. He was interested in your inferior type. But anyway, how about anybody else? Adam, you're leaning forward. Do you have a comment?
No, I'm participating in the chat. Like
Oh,
one side
okay,
of my
I
brain
see.
chat,
Okay,
one side of my brain.
I thought you were leaning forward. Okay.
No.
Well, is there anybody else that has anything I was going to quickly talk about the anima, and then a little bit about psychological faith. And there's so much more to talk about, but some of it might be a little repetitious, but it more fleshes out. But hi, Ivan. And I think, did I see Jordy come in? Yeah, Jordy's here too. Yeah. Hi, Jordy. I didn't say hi to you either.
There was one thing I wanted to say or ask.
Mhm.
And when it comes to symbols, and I'm very much a disciple of the Bible. First of all, I'll say that. But I'm wondering, when did the cross become the symbol to represent the meaning and purpose of Jesus Christ? If anybody knows, I don't know that, to my understanding of the Bible, I don't know that there's anything that ever says in the Bible, you know, use a cross as the symbol. And John Vervaeke, a professor of psychology, he's a confused, or he's a searching seeker of some sort. And he says, it dawns on him that, you know, people wearing a cross around their neck is akin to somebody, if you met somebody who had a guillotine on a chain around their neck, you know, as a little symbol. And his question, are we
Literalizing it. Yeah.
Is this symbol, you know, when it creates the mythology for the collective, is that actually putting a particular slant to John Vervaeke says, sort of almost
Yeah, that's not a
death, not a
helpful
as opposed to
comment by
saying
Vervaeke. Why it's not a helpful comment?
Bread and water, or bread and wine, I say.
Yeah, it's literalizing a symbol. You don't literalize symbols. You don't say, "Oh, well, that's an execution." I mean, Jung, I believe, and you might know this too, Louis. I think in the ETH shows that originally the cross was just a equilateral cross inside of a circle, you know, and then it started to have be elongated, and the midpoint of the quaternity started to rise up to the point of the head, and then it started to look like a man, you know. And so the midpoint of the so the ego, this is the symbol. Just I'm stating it. It's not literal. The ego is suspended at the midpoint of a quaternity, which is the self. So this is where the self and the ego meet, is at the midpoint of the quaternity, and it's suspended at the midpoint. But the cross itself is a symbol of fourness, or it's somewhat of a transcendent figure, but it has nothing. It has some things to do with the fact that it was used. You know, I think somebody just saw. Isn't it interesting that this method of through which Jesus died is a quaternity, you know, and thought that was a synchronicity, and started to use it. But it's anyway, it's that is a it's an image. It's a wonderful image. I mean, Christianity is filled with images.
Craig?
So yes.
I just posted in the chat an essay that Dr. Jung wrote about the origins of the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of synchronicities, one great synchronicity between the East and the West is that the fundamental basis of Christianity is the atonement. And the basis of Buddhism is at-one-ment, which is quite a remarkable fact.
Yeah, it is. It is a very, I know Joseph Campbell used to mention that quite a bit. The atonement, which means to propitiate, to do something to appease something that's been offended, and at-one-ment means that you're at one. What we're going to do is here is find out what the difference between what eventually happens. This is what Hillman says too, is that monotheistic consciousness compared with this polytheistic realm of the dream, that is what we experience in our psyche and is what we experience in active imagination as well. That's what he means by personifying. And that's the difference between a mythic life, a life of symbols, not symbol, but a pluralized world of symbols. Soul making is myth making. And the whole idea is that if you have been lost from you don't have a symbolic system that works for you anymore, you can now this personifying active imagination gives us a key to for the ego to be in service. Therapeuin, that means to be in service to the divine, and to be in service to a divine within us that wants to be in relationship with us. So it's this living relationship with our inner self that creates our own personal myth. Jung said that he wanted to know by what myth he was living, and he said, I had to be honest, I didn't know. I didn't have it. He knew what it was like to live with the myth, and he knew what it was like to live without a myth. And he said that the task of tasks for himself was to find out what his personal myth was. And the way he finds it out is through a dialogue with the unconscious, making the dark contents come to the surface and manifest themselves. But anyway, I've got about 12 minutes and then I'm going to turn it over. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, no, thanks, Craig. Just a brief observation or thought on my part. Sometimes when we talk about like personification and stuff, probably nobody has this problem, but sometimes I think of it as like inventing things that I'm gonna like try to have a relationship with. But I don't think it's like that. I mean, even, I think what Maggie said was really to the point, because for me, it's like you're discovering what's already there,
That's what it's supposed to work. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
But you're given a name too.
Yeah. I think it's a very creative process, and it does make use of like the rational faculties and stuff, and like the frontal neocortex and that kind of thing. But it's like, it's working with like a field which already exists, and like what you were saying about Jung trying to figure out what myth he lived according to. It's like, yeah, it's there already. It's just a matter of trying to
discover
to penetrate into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a real realm. That's wonderfully spoken. And by the way, the rational faculties of the ego are what's known as the light or logos. And these contents in the unconscious long for the light. What they long for is the awareness of ego consciousness, because these figures only exist, the ones that are empirically experienced, are only exist within one person. So you develop your own, if you're going to do this, and what Hillman says later, and like I said, I could go through that whole book, but I don't think we got time for me to go through the whole book. But what Hillman says later is that this is the most authentic way for those whose genetic material came from Europe. In other words, the European way versus the thing is, would we ever expect in Japan for the Shinto and Zen suddenly to drop Shinto and Zen and all become Catholics? Well, what Hillman is saying is that even though the way of soul making and the way of image making is what shaped our psyches amongst the Celts and the Germanic people and the people of the Greco peninsula and of the Nordic peoples. This is what shaped us, and shaped our psyche. And so when we return to it, that suddenly we're revivified. And that's what he brings up the term Renaissance, that he says it means a rebirth. And what does it mean to be reborn from what? And so that's what he's saying, this return to Greece through depth psychology. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. Just that's an interesting observation that you're making, and I would have to think about it or research it more. But I attended a lecture a few weeks ago. Tim Holmes invited me to it. He's another member of this group, and the presenter was a man named Dr. Shen, who was the editor-in-chief of the collected works of Carl Jung in Chinese, which is, I think, just about to come out. And it was so interesting to me because he brought the Chinese perspective, Chinese mythology, into the conversation, and I realized how rich it is in that.
It's beautiful.
It's hard for me to think that it's something particular to European DNA. When you even look at like African, like Yoruba traditions, which are
there's similarities everywhere,
Yeah.
except there's so much richness in the Chinese. But one thing Jung said, that if we took Chinese people and put them in the Swiss Alps for 10,000 years, their mythology would be shaped by the landscape of the Swiss Alps. And he says if we took Swiss and moved them to those tall, thin spires we see in Chinese paintings, and had them live amongst the rice paddies for 10,000 years, their myths would be shaped by the landscape that they live in. So when he's talking about the shape of the European myth, he's talking about the landscape of Europe that shaped the psyche of the people that lived there over 10, 20, 30,000 years, and his hypothesis is that even though several hundred years or 1,000 years go by, that landscape that shaped the myth, think of the Polynesians, the people who live in Hawaii and the Pacific Islands, and how their myths have been shaped. And think of the people of the Inuits of the far north in Alaska, the seal hunters and the whale hunters, and think of the people, the Kalahari Bushmen of the South African deserts, and how their myths were shaped. These are wonderful diversities of mythic systems. But the one thing about Chinese is they're always, they're so, the Tao, Confucianism, the I Ching, you know, go ahead. Does somebody want to say something? I thought I heard somebody say, but anyway.
I want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Maggie.
Yeah, I'm Chinese, so I think I want to say something about it.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah. An interesting observation I seem to observe is that when dealing with Chinese mythology, which I am growing up with my past culture, being a Chinese, right, a rich culture of 5,000 plus years, and compared to Western civilization like Greek or Christianity, how I see it is, it seems to me that the Western ones are much more brutal, like about blood, or especially the Greek ones, where you see like all these Greek gods and like talking about eating flesh and Zeus, and you know, all these were like quite shocking to me if you are compared to Western mythology compared to Chinese ones, which I don't understand how does it come up with, because it's a collective unconscious overall, even though it's a Western and you know, it's a human as in common point. I haven't got the time to ask my psychologist about it, but what she commented a little bit is the Western and the Eastern mythologies come from different sides, and how they merge together and form a collective unconscious, and we are bridging. And well, I didn't ask her much because she could, I think, talk for hours on that, but I didn't pay session on that. But that just only this part that strikes me a little bit different, and which I don't understand. How come this? Of course, from Christianity, I understand it's like the catharsis and how these are necessary, and you know, all these understanding in how the redemption of humanity and stuff like that. But in Greek, it's just pure brutality.
Well, in the mythic sense, now we're talking about the mythic sense, but you know what in Joseph Campbell would say is that the East is a perennial philosophy. I mean, there's an idea of it goes on forever.
Yeah,
You know,
we are
so
like
there's a
kind
more
of
elemental aspect to it. Where, well, he said it, first of all, it's more elemental. It's more. It's more. There's not a lot of gods. There's just the energy of Brahman. You know, just this this energy that is dealt with. Like, for instance, in the Tao, you know, or in Hinduism, of course, there's all these energies that come out of Brahman. But you know, Vishnu sleeps on the cosmic serpent, you know, dreaming the dream of the universe. So I mean, there's an idea, there's unity there too, you know. And but in northern hunting tribes of Europe, it's known as the hero journey, you know. And it is certainly a different mythology. But and now the Greek mythic system, if you look at it and read the myths, you might think they're brutal, but you need to interpret them. Like, you have brutal dreams. You have some dreams that are just horribly, you know, violent or just unpleasant. Let's put it that way, you know. But let's my wife just sent me a nightmare she had this morning. You know, I said, it's not a nightmare. Let's take it and draw it and put colors in it and make it a stained glass window in the house of wisdom on the rock of your. I mean, what I'm saying is, even though it seems like that, but you have to remember that it is like you would interpret a dream. It's these images. There is a drama to them, you know, in your dream, and the Western mythologies that are pre-Christian, like, for instance, the Norse mythology or the Germanic mythology or the Celtic mythologies, or the Greek mythologies tend to be more psychological in the depth psychology sense, that they're like a dream, you know.
Can I just add
You know?
something quick?
So they have all the figures that are being a dream. Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, because I feel like yeah, what she was I just wanted to comment what she was asking about. I feel like at the core, this is between plus and minus. Like in the West, it's more, you have more individualistic or individualized consciousness, and whereas in China they have more a collective consciousness. I'm half Filipino and half Norwegian, so
Okay.
I have seen this both world, and so the collective consciousness is obviously more synchronistic, you know, which you have the I Ching and so on. So you have synchronistic, you know, if one object comes with another object, does have some sort of a secret relationship, and so if you look at the Greek mythology, it's quite differentiated, you know, it's quite detailed in that sense, and whereas the Chinese is more, everything is interconnected, interrelated in a ways we can't necessarily know in that sense. So I think it's just reflection. I think Jung, he married both of these approaches. You see, Jung, he throws the I Ching, and at the same time he writes psychological types, which is just dissecting the ego basically. And so he married both of this world. And yes, and so just the last comment is that we also mentioned archetypes. Archetypes are like the water. So when the snow comes, you know, there's all water, but the crystal that is formed from the water. So the crystal is different from different parts of the world, but the water is the same basically. If we look at the core of it, it's gonna be all the same. But obviously there is going to be blind spot in different culture because the water has seeped into different, like Greg said, environment.
The way I like as a layman interpret it is perhaps, I don't know, is in like Chinese, I'm not talking about the whole Asian or Eastern because it's too fast. And I have not enough knowledge of the other Asian mythologies to comment anything about Chinese. The possibility of that, in my layman understanding, could be, I don't know, maybe that we haven't really deal with shadows in a positive way. And we're trying to, therefore, those brutality, those were totally being suppressed as in mythology. I don't know is that true or not, but just it's just a very sharp contrast between the Eastern, the Asian or the Chinese mythology compared to the Western one. That's what I see, which I don't understand.
Greek, you can't literalize either one. I mean, Chinese is so beautiful on the quality of events and time, and you know how do they fit in with the Tao of this moment? You know, this moment has a quality that moment didn't. You know, so this is appropriate now, not appropriate then. You know, where in the tribal, the northern hunting tribes of Europe are special case, but that doesn't make either one right or wrong. It just means that their psyches grew up in different. Well, I was just going to finish with this, and I'm turning over to Gary and Adam and Jan if they want. It's just the last part of psychological faith. He says, not I personify, but the anima or the soul personifies me. I don't personify. The soul personified me. The soul makes herself through me. She gives me my life, and her sense, her intense daydream is my meanness, you know. And this, I put this thing up, and somebody said, I love Eckhart Tolle, you know. It was actually Meister Eckhart Tolle, but he says that the soul loves to, let me see if I can find this real quick. It's just, wonderful little thing that is always, I thought was so beautiful. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. That this is from Meister Eckhart. You know, when the soul wishes to experience something, she throws an image of the experience out before her and enters into her own image. And this is the idea of not I personify, but the soul personifies me. The soul makes herself through me, you know, and that her intense daydream is my meanness, you know. So, I mean, the one thing that I get from the whole Hillman book, of course, we just went through the first chapter. The next chapter, we'll just start in the next chapter with the difference between soul and spirit. You can read all the pathology parts if you want, but I think they're a little medical, but, you know. Well, now I'm going to turn this over now to Gary and Adam and Jan or anybody else. So you guys be the moderators, but just talk about anything that you guys take over.
Okay, so.
Okay. Is that okay? Yeah.
So I had sent a document to Craig based on, you know, the group. The group was originally intended to be a doing Jung, and I kind of felt like, well, you know, we've been studying a lot of Jung, and so the question is, well, how could we do Jung, and how could we actually get our feet wet rather than, you know, sort of staying in the clouds? And Hillman works out really well for this, because with these personifying, you know, talks, this is fairly straightforward to do, and really probably, you know, a lifetime to master. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through an example. And then after we go through this example, then I'm going to put up some things, and then everyone will take kind of a shot at doing some personifications of these things, and then we'll discuss it as a group. So the way I went about this is, I actually, the first one I did was fairly banal. My neighbors voted to put in a road. And the unfortunate part about this is that we actually have to pay for the road. And if the majority of the people voted for it, then anyone else that was stuck with it, you know, they had to pay for it. So this first one is really, you know, kind of a personification of something that annoyed me. So the personification in this case is annoyance. And the first way I did it was as an image. So it was funny, when I did this exercise, there was a construction vehicle down there and it had like all these flashing lights. And I'm like, oh, that is just so weird. So here was my personification of it. I imagined the construction vehicle as a mechanical monster with clashing jaws. Inside its mouth, its titanium teeth flash with the sparks of rocks being chewed on. On the road sit rows of Christmas trees, each on their own, stand all lit up with Xmas lights. They all await being devoured by the hungry monster. Fog rolls through the trees as they call on the spirits to hide them. It is hopeless. The yellow brick road leads right through them. The destroyed Christmas trees represent projects that'll have to be set aside to pay for the road. Okay, so that's personification as an image.
And just to note, Gary, I did put in the chat notes the handout that you're working with. So if people want to download it, just to have it there beside them as well. It's right at the bottom of the chat notes.
Right. And when we get to, you know, so if we get past the first one, which is this image of a boulder that you're going to, you know, project into to personify with, then Jan came up with a, you know, really nice set of paintings that we can also work on. So we'll discuss that more here in just a little bit. Okay, so then as a poem, we trees are glued to the road. Hungry demons smell our scent. Gnashing teeth salivate, time grows short. Devastation is near. The congealing mob is eager to tear. Dreams cut short by stupid thoughts of order and how to appear. All right, and then if we do it as an emotion, or so I did it as emotion, the rain has failed to keep away the large predators. Those that would tear at the earth have gathered near, eager to feed their maws. No way to bait them to some other place with words like cat they are prone to ignore. With the earth now exposed, I feel the leaking of my vital flows. So that's what we have as examples. So what you're going to work with is this image of this boulder. And you aren't going to have much time. We're only going to do like 3 minutes. And I would suggest, just almost do this like automatic writing and try not to be very conscious about it, because, I think we want to get past the rational. We really want to get to the unconscious, because if we're personifying things, in a way, we're trying to give those things that are inside of us that, that maybe we don't pay enough attention to a voice. And so personifying is, again, it's sort of soul making. And soul making, according to Hillman, is, a way to give our many voices a way to express themselves. So before I start, do we have any questions? And and I guess I should say, what we're going to do is, so we'll look at this image, you'll personify, you'll write something out, and then, we'll take volunteers. So anyone that has something, a personification that they feel worked, what they thought was interesting in any way whatsoever, you'll go ahead and go through it, and the group will kind of make comments, and then we'll just keep going through people's personifications. And I think my idea on this is that, we're all going to learn from each other in ways to, that we can see these things and ways that we can personify. And I guess, that the other part of this is that, this is an interesting exercise, but I think if you really want to get to the point where, where Hillman is talking about, this is something that you'll take outside the meeting. You'll play with, images that you find interesting. And so, you might take one attempt at it, and then you might do like what you would do in a dream, where you go back in and you amplify, and, you try to, find more about what's behind this. Maybe you talk to the things that are coming up as emotions and actually turn them literally into, statues, much like the Greeks did. So any questions?
I guess on the format of the writing, it doesn't have to be in any particular format. We can just kind of write whatever, almost like free association.
Oh, I would suggest free association.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just did the 3 examples, like, here's as a poem, here's as, an emotion, or a visualization or whatever, just as some samples of what you might do, but really just come do whatever comes naturally.
Based on this rock, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Based on the rock that we are seeing.
And I should have turned it into an image instead of leaving it in the document, but yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and start my timer, and in 3 minutes, we'll go through what people got. Okay. Does anybody want to start?
Okay, I could start first. Is this okay?
By all means.
Okay. This is Hodan's sculpture of humanity. You could name him Peter or John or Mary, a human being where you can see every day on the street. Face down, bearing with the heavy burden or challenges of whatever life is offering. He or she may be tired, can be despair. Defeated though, never he or she will be. As long as she is going forward, disregard however small the step will be. He is still making an advancement. Rest or she must be, but they will always, as humanity, proceed.
Wow.
That's all I have.
Yeah, well, that's a lot.
I love that.
That's a comment I feel about latest what happened to us as human facing the challenges of COVID.
Yeah,
And
the burden really
yeah,
comes through.
it's a real burden, and it's an alarming thing that alarms all of us as humans and healthcare and leaders around the world, what we should be doing better. And I believe a lot of families have been shaken up and destroyed because of this, businesses too. People are scared, but I think they can still go on.
Right, right. Well, I think I'm going, thank you. I think I'm going to read Jan's next. She has hers in the chat. So, the face of some Roman god, a young guy, philosopher, who can't tell if he is the rock or he is contemplating the rock. His head holds his heart. He is talking to himself. He is not Adonis, though he is beautiful. He is not Plotinus, thinking the daemon into existence. He is the daemon who exists. Oh, beautiful.
Looks like maybe Craig also posted one. Do you want to read that yourself, Craig?
Oh yeah. Well, it's on a twisted pedestal, so it's a pedestal that is turning. There sits the ancient tower, and the ancient tower has fallen on its side, so it no longer operates as this connector between the above and the below, and the symbol of ascent, from below. And but the tower that's now on its side is put on this turning pedestal, and the turning, I think, implies that time has moved since that image fell on its side and is no longer operating. And yet, in sort of just boredom and a lack of adventure, we put the fallen tower onto this clock, this turning pedestal, and worship it instead of following the message of the pedestal and trying to create our own living image.
Fascinating. So, we have one of burden coming through, and then disconnection is what I get from yours.
Marina has.
Next.
Can I go?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I felt the frog seemed ready to jump, but the man's weight upon his back is heavy, his neck bowed forward. He had a long way to go, but the load was well balanced, and he bowed before his Lord, presenting. The angel in the corner flies. Then I came away from that image, and the whole thing I saw like the head, I think, of a gazelle. I see Adam's nodding. I don't know whether you saw it, like like a bronze statue of a gazelle.
I did not. I just thought it was beautiful. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It is. It
I
is
see it
beautiful.
now. Yeah.
You can see it now.
Wow, what a transformation. From what was a frog to a gazelle?
The frog to the gazelle. Anyway, that was yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
Could I could go next if that's okay, Gary.
Beautiful. Very beautiful.
Well, I just want to also say, just it strikes me that it's so interesting because I see like commonality between these personifications, and also kind of very unique based on, I think, where each of our minds happens to be. And I see for mine, it's quite personal. I'll just read what I wrote. I am being born. First, I am blind and carrying a large weight. Now, a lot of us have this burden in our things. I perceive a sense of direction. Where are my feet? Here they are below me. The burden I am carrying is my wings. Look behind you, for your shadow follows. It is hollow like your chest. Will you inhale? Know me, for I am love. I am yourself.
Mm.
Wow.
Lovely.
I just feel like we could spend like hours on some of these images, you know, I mean, and that, you know, the other thing that I'm getting out of this is, you know, some of this feels really soulful, like, you know, it really does reach deep inside. And it's like, and, you know, I hadn't expected this much this first try. I thought, okay, this is going to be, you know, we're gonna flounder some, but looking at this, it's like, you know, I already see images that people could, you know, work with on their own for weeks. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll share. I was a little confused. I thought somehow the rock was connected with the story of the road and the Christmas trees, and everybody's going to have to pay for this road. So this is what I wrote. The rock can stay. Why did we let a few determine that we should design our roads to suit automobiles over pedestrians and Mother Nature's natural beauty? So I thought the rock had to be blown up so we could get this road that you talked about earlier through.
Right. I wasn't very clear. Anybody else want to share?
I guess I'll share. I didn't have much luck personifying it, but I just kind of wrote whatever based off of it. But a rock? No, an alien. This had better be the Philosopher's Stone, because I want nothing to do with it otherwise. It won't float in water. But maybe, depending on its size, I could use it as a canvas. Maybe I could stand on it as its warmth is increased by the sun. Maybe it would provide me with the most perfect view of the most glorious sunset. But since it cannot come into the water with me, I am reluctant to be friends with it. I suppose it will stay here for all of its days. So maybe, eventually, I will make it my home.
Fascinating.
You see the rock is developing qualities. Now you want to see it again because it's developing a personality.
Oh yeah, good point. Anyone else, or else we can go on to the next exercise. This was kind of the practice, and the next one is the next one's interesting. So let's see if I can do this. All right, this is not. Let's go full screen, and then. Did I get the wrong one? Oh, I got the wrong one.
I attached this one also. It's called 10 Events Paintings. And I just attached it again. So if you guys look in the chat, it's at the bottom.
Right. Now, actually, and maybe that would be better. Let's see if, well, you know, the weird part is it actually kind of shows up. It's almost like, let me try. Well, no, you're right. You have to download this one yourself because I'm going to provide a link. I did get the link for this.
It's right here, Gary. It's right there in the chat. And you can actually, if you share it on screen, if you make it larger on your screen, it should be larger on ours.
All right.
I could be wrong, but
See if you can open it from that. If anyone has trouble opening from that, I can provide a link. I put it in my Google Docs, and I think it might, because if you download it, I think then you have to download it somewhere and then open it. And I was having some issues downloading it to a directory where I could get to it.
Gary, just an idea that, I mean, and just background for everybody, you know, the reason that we're doing this is because, you know, some of us talked to Craig offline and we're like, hey, you know, we need more participation somehow, because it's like everybody here has like their own just life, you know, and that's like a treasure in itself. I was thinking, I mean, we could do another exercise, but it might also be interesting to know how people felt about doing the exercise, what kind of exercises people might like to do, anything to like encourage more participation on the part of everybody. We could go ahead and do the other exercise, but it was just something that I wanted to suggest there.
Well, these images are so beautiful. What is it we're supposed to do with them?
Okay.
If we did do something.
Right. So, you know, go ahead and I just put a link that might be easier to open.
it works.
Okay, so go ahead and open that, and then go through the images and choose one that you're going to personify, and then you'll have 4 minutes on this one, and then we'll share again. And then at the end of all this, we can kind of discuss like, hey, is this working for people? Do we want to do more of this type of thing, or do we want to just go back to like, no, let's just be a study group and, you know, discuss things. But, you know, especially for the personification, I looked at, you know, Hillman. I thought, oh my gosh, you know, it's like, this is worth mastering. And we just, you know, we need ways to practice this. We need ways to bring this into our lives. And it's, you know, it's going to take a lot more than just doing a couple of images here. But I thought introducing the process, having a group to share it in where we can discuss, you know, what we're getting out of it, what seems to work would be useful. So go ahead, open that link, look at the paintings, and I'll start the timer. Select one, and then what I'll do is I'll go through the paintings at the end. You know, I'll say, did anyone do image one? And if you did, then I'll say, okay, would you like to discuss it? And then I'll go on to the next one. Did anyone do image two? And, you know, so we'll just go through them one by one, and you know, we'll do whoever did which one. So go ahead.
I think this is just very rich. I've been getting a lot out of it.
Okay. If everyone is done, okay, I'm going to share the paintings, and so what you're going to have to do as I go through them is you're just going to have to speak up because I won't be able to see you. So on painting 1, did anyone do that one?
I did that one. I put
I
it in
did
the
that one
chat.
too.
Okay, let's hear.
You go first.
Oh, me? Okay. It's a world of names where a man who lives an orderly 9-to-5 life, lost in awe and wonder. The maidens were trying to communicate with him, but they weren't being able to this high status orderly man who all he was thinking about was the business deal he's going to have and thinking when he can go back to the normal daily life as he has known it. That's
Nice.
all.
I mean, it's like, and like you could really turn that into a persona too, like the disconnected man that, you could have.
Yeah, it's kind of like a midlife crisis hit this man kind of thing, like in the middle of forming a life orderly all his life. Then suddenly there's the awakening of the anima, which is kind of my feeling of this painting.
Right. Can we have the next one? Whoever had the other one for this one?
I'll read it. Okay, anima findings. He is lost among the multiplicity of the anima. He can't see them as he searches in the flowers, white petals unfolding, longing for the sun. He is too civilized in nature. He wants to study the nomenclature of plant life. Look up, sir gentleman. We are dancing around you. We stir the grasses at your feet.
Nice. I like the anima image too, and then the opening of the flowers, and it's like again, the disconnect. Again, something could be really easy to turn into, literally a persona. Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. I presume there's no more in this one.
Craig, was this one for that? Do you want to read it?
Yeah, I had one very close to the one that Maggie read. Accidentally sent it to an individual. I didn't mean to, but it's just, I don't know, it just hit me, this wonderful blueness of the night approaching, and the man pensively walking through this aroma-filled field far from the concrete of the city, and surrounded by arbors in the hills. He's obviously walking home from a place that's very unlike this place. And as he does, the ambience of the night and of the lunar world and of the aroma of the flowers awakens the soul in him, and it includes singing maidens who approach him, and in the distance, dancing nymphs, and its soul is awakening, through this smell of the flowers, is really awakening his nature life. It's dissolving this willful ego is dissolving, and it's starting to now his personality number 2 is starting to come into being. And when his personality number 2 starts to come into being, the imaginal world comes into being, and it starts to populate itself around him. These figures that are there are the ones that are invisible and hidden in the heart. That's all.
Nice. Yeah, I could really see that too. That I like those images. Did anyone do number 2? Oh, and Adam, would you watch for Jan's and read hers if we get to it in the comments?
Mhm.
Well, I think Jan actually, I think that wasn't that Jan speaking. She speaks.
Oh, it was,
I
okay.
don't recognize her voice.
Number 3, anyone do number 3?
Yes, I did.
Cool.
Okay, go ahead, Mom.
Okay, so that's Pablo Picasso's Mother and Child. And when I look at the child, I'm actually seeing a little man and more than a, an infant. And behind them is some shadowy figure of some sort. So with that in mind, I came up with mother is not the wisdom we are listening to in our modern world. And Mother Earth is included in that, and Mother Earth is not being listened to. And what jumped out at me is I recently heard that Jeff Bezos, who owns Amazon, he made $13 billion in one day recently. Greatest increase in wealth in one day ever recorded. Personal fortune now 183 billion. Mark Zuckerberg has increased, who's the Facebook founder and owner, increased his wealth by 15 billion this year, a year of COVID. And now 23 people own the same amount of wealth as the bottom 1/2 of the world's population. In other words, 23 people have the wealth of 4 billion people. So we seem to think that financial wealth is, this is the wisdom that's ruling. And the mother is very much not in consideration of what we're doing and how we are living our lives and our meaning and purpose.
You know, I found it interesting that you saw it not as a baby, but as a man. And I'm like, you know, I can see that now too. It really sort of stands out. Did anyone else do this one? How about this one?
Yeah, I did this one.
Okay.
But I needed more time. I needed more time. And I could see so much, and I could have gone to so many places. I think what I settled with was the black area, and I saw a African woman looking up to the sky, sitting on a seat, and from her head seemed thoughts that were like steam, like heat rising and leaving her head. And I went down then. I know it's a ship, you know, but I wasn't looking at, I was trying to sort of go with what I could see and push away what I knew the title of the painting was. And that's where I sat with this African lady sitting and stewing in thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, I like the reflective nature of it. And now, you know, I see the head and then the lighter kind of black clouds that are, you know, coming out. Those, yeah, as the thoughts that really make sense. That'd be worthwhile, you know, you working on for a while. See if it leads somewhere.
Right. Okay. I get that. Thank you. Yeah.
I actually did that one myself, and mine's pretty short. The red giant sees the world, colored through tinted view. Although some ships sail free, everything else is very heavy. So no others on that?
These are all such inspired choices, Jan. I think you chose these.
Oh my gosh, Jan, these are just incredible. You know, it's like,
Beautiful.
yeah.
everybody just treat them like a dream. Well, if this was a dreaming,
Mm.
Right. Anyone do this one?
I did this one.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just read. How many graves must I unearth before I come home? I deplore the endless existence which leads nowhere. Can I build my house on such a precarious foundation? I will go to the mountains and with the stars illuminate the church below.
Mm.
Nice. Anyone
it's
else?
interesting who chose what colors and what motifs too.
Yeah, yeah. This must be a Monet or no.
Mm.
Anyone for this one?
That one reminded me of the flowers in the Nerval for Craig, because Craig, you love that. I did too.
Yes.
Right.
Just it. What does that look like? It's just so beautiful. I mean, it's the fact that it's
I see a
just
head in here. It looks to me like a woman, but nobody for this one. Okay. Anyone else on this one?
They were done by groups. So it's not an individual artist. It was a collective group who did these two that you're seeing.
Hmm.
snakes and cells, and it's just beautiful. It's almost, yeah.
Oh
I mean,
my
all
God.
of the.
Like, I almost wish I would have done this one. This one really has.
I could write one on all of them. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And actually, my suggestion is that you do download this and then, play with these over the week because, I think a lot of times we have strong emotions that are hidden. And then, if we can contact those and give them a personage, then like if it's an actual kind of imaginal person, then I think it's easier to have the conversations. Anyone on this?
Yeah, I did that.
Great.
Yeah, this was a really good projection of my inner dream complexes. But it started out positive actually. The guy and the girl, but what I ended up with was feeling nauseous, like really nauseous. I almost felt like going out actually. I didn't do it, but because this girl just really personified a image I had in my dream, in which she was throwing up. She ate something she couldn't digest, and I just felt that whole of me that I just felt that feeling again, and I still feel there is a bit of it left. Something that has to be digested, but I have to throw it out. I have an idea what it is, but yeah, it feels like this is a really good image for me to use as a way to get rid of my excesses.
What do you think that the look on the boy's face says? The expression.
And look at his neck, his green neck, that neck, it does feel like, something that's congested there and is going to, cause a
Yeah,
problem.
but that's the thing for me, was more the anima. The guy for me could handle the excess, if that makes sense. But for me, it was more the girl that couldn't have, because she looks excited in the beginning, like for me at least. But then I look closer, and I just, hopefully that I don't analyze too much and just try to project my inner. And for me, it was more the girl, my anima could not quite digest. Or it's not she couldn't quite digest, it's more that she has to get rid. And I think I already know what it is. I can say it. Because like I said before as well, like it was a point in my life for perhaps 4 or 5 years where I really was into alchemical work, and I was really into this archetypal world of building the philosopher's stone. And during the time, it's just so much material you have to sort of go through. So it's to get rid of my last of my inflation from that work, sort of. I feel like.
His neck resembles the flowers to the left, and on his arm as well. Something.
I think this is a very interesting painting. It's like the neck, and then the arm, and then it's like two arms. Look at the hand. The hand as if it's like broken, like the one in front of the neck. It's like it's really weird. Something is peculiar about this guy. Like the look is not natural. It's like
And yet he's naked.
And yet he's naked. And the two hands, you could see that the limbs are not parallel. Like one hand is muscular, yet the hand cannot be used because it seems to be broken. The other one is not muscular at all. I think if you work on it longer, it could be so much could be derived from this. It takes some time for thinking.
You know what would be fun sometime is just for us all just to do a amplification of these paintings as a group. I mean, because there's so much in these. I mean, I just say every one of these is to make my heart leap. I mean, they're so beautiful job, Jan. These are. Oh, I could spend even that second one with the mountain and the circle.
Yeah.
Your suggestion, Craig, it actually reminds me of this one exercise I did in a group. And the idea was that, you had a painting like this and you do a story, a narrative around it. So one person starts the story and then the next person adds to it. But the rule is that nobody can go back and change the story. You have to continue forward with it. And the one that we tried with it was just insanely abstract. I mean, it was strings and odd things, hung from it. And at the end, it actually made sense. And it was like, wow, what a strange thing. Well, I'm going to shut
that would address Adam's comment too. Adam, what do you think of that idea?
Sexual abuse, he said.
Yeah. No. Unfortunately, I can't do two things at the same time well. So as I was writing that, I wasn't listening to Gary, so I don't know what he said.
Well, you just have everybody comment on like these paintings and start a story. And I mean, I really like. Anyway, I'm stay out of it, but I could. Yeah, they're just so beautiful.
Idea of that.
Yeah,
because it would be a collaboration, a co-created, active imagination of the group, and yeah, I really like the idea of that. I mean, it's risky, because you're exposing yourself, and there's the competitive feeling of who's going to be better than me, and then you guys. I know, but you guys, as I find it really humbling being here with you. Your brains are just amazing, and I'm feeding. I'm getting a good feed, and when can I offer you hospitality? And kind of the exercise gave me the opportunity to show some, to give back some, and then there's a feeling of reciprocity, and it's wholesome. I've said enough.
Well, so yeah, I mean, that's something we could try next time too. But and the other thing is, you can, we could Craig could start an email and we could kind of comment back on how we like this and stuff. But personally, well, of course, both Jan and I have done these things like where you go to like an art museum and you'll be like with like a friend and you'll come up with a poem for what you're looking at. And then kind of share it. So this has a lot of appeal to me. But I wanted to share one thing. I actually every morning I like to do this automatic writing, and then a couple days ago I had this one that actually came out pretty comprehensible, which definitely isn't always the case. But I thought it really pertained to this, so I'm going to read it. question is how to deepen something into an experience that means something to us. Personifying is really soul work, where we deepen, we feel, we try to touch the unconscious by allowing its image and emotions to rise, to project on the material or event that we are experiencing. This way, by not being rational, we give a path for our inner daemons to give their view on the world. Better yet is if we can actually identify the inner daemons, and when personifying, make that daemon known with his own voice for what is being expressed. I love the take the ancient Greeks had, where each virtue, such as truth or beauty, had their own God and so could be imagined, projected, and personified. If we see a virtue or emotion coming through our writing exercise, then I think a useful amplification would be to redo the same exercise, only turn that emotion or virtue into a daemon and give it its own voice. Because, looking at Hillman, what we really want is we want these things that are, major things in our life, things that we projected into the images to become somebody that, a daemon that we hold conversations with. And I think Craig actually read something where like, hey, the way to get over your neuroses is to hold discussions with these things, to personify them. Anyway, that's it for me. Comments?
Yeah, I've got a quick comment. So it just dawned on me that about 12 minutes ago, I might have left to go to a Quaker meeting. And anybody who saw my note, imagine leaving this meeting and then going and being just like we are, but sitting for a whole hour, nobody saying anything. And then when that hour is up, finally, somebody shares something, but you're not to critique it or comment on this person's sharing. And everybody's welcome to share, and then there's supposed to be silence in between. Now, obviously, and I won't go into it, but there's a story as to, well, what took me to be in these Quaker meetings. I guess I'm just not there though, because as I said, Lewis shared, that this is the only time we have for this ego in this existence on Earth. So I just want to say in summary, I very much appreciate this exercise and this sharing that we've had for this hour and a half, as opposed to where I could have gone this week and I didn't. So thank you.
How often do we get the opportunity to speak in this voice? I mean, Gary and Adam and Jan brought this forward. I think it's very enriching, and I think it to me it helps me. I don't know about you. Like you said, Marina. I think it's we don't get this opportunity very much. It's what does it hurt us just to look at a painting and try to say try to amplify it as if it were our dream. I mean, that's so beautiful. But I just love it. I mean, this is. I mean, the collaboration of you three is just it's amazing. I mean, Jan, I everything you touch turns into beauty. I'll just say that.
Jan had to drop off, but we should relay that to her somehow. But I also just wanted to say, for me personally, not like I'm a leader of this group, but my feeling is, if anybody had an exercise that they felt like they thought would be valuable for the group to do, man, I think that would just be so cool, like everybody sort of being a leader or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, everybody just contact either Gary or Adam or Jan with suggestions. But from for the last half of the 90 minutes, it just belongs to a group collaboration, whatever you three and the rest of the people come up with. And I mean, I just feel it's beautiful.
And if anyone has something that they feel, like an exercise that they want to lead or something, it's not like this is closed. It's like, we're just looking for ways that we can do Jung that we can find our way into the unconscious, the things that speak to us. So yeah, like, if you've got an idea and you want to run with it yourself, just contact Craig and, we'll go with it.
Well, yeah, and I'll just
I think,
put him in touch with you guys, because I mean, I prefer that Adam came up with this suggestion. I think it's so beautiful. And I just prefer that maybe Adam and Gary and Jan collaborate on what's going to happen with the input of everybody else. But I mean, I'll tell you, this is, like I say, we all have strengths, and I think Adam and Jan and Gary have strengths I don't even come close to. So I prefer that they develop this organically, as you say.
yeah, we complement each
See
other.
what happens.
I agree. I think Jordy wanted to say something, by the way. I don't know how much time you have.
Hello. Well, in my case, I found the whole thing too hectic for me. Hectic is the word. I mean, just to download things, to go after them, there was an image overload at some point, and I need a bit of calmness and to enter a peculiar, say, state of consciousness, so to speak, to work that. It doesn't take that much time, but it was, so to speak, too impromptu.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, Jordy, and I think this was kind of done as an example. And in truth, I think any deep work really has to be done off of line. And I know for myself, my preferred state before like trying something like this, I would have meditated for like half an hour or something. But but of course we were kind of limited within the window of the group. So I think what we'll have to do is we'll take input. And, if it's viewed as like, yeah, it's a good idea, but, we're not in the proper state, then, maybe we'll try something different or kind of let go of this part of it. But I think, even for what you're saying, like you could download those pictures and then do this on your own. So, but I agree. It's a good point.
No, well, and as in aviation say, excuse me the profanity, shit happens. I mean, sometimes connection is not good. You open the file and you have to revalidate the license, that type of thing, which is putting salt in the wound, so to speak, or vinegar to the wound, which is not a good idea. But since all of us are good students, I think, to engage in some, say, next class assignments could be one way of navigating that.
Yeah, I would love to hear, Gary, Jordy, some of your reveries on some of these things. Though I mean, sure you can do something. I mean, I'd like to hear everybody's sort of their other voice rather than their talking voice.
Look, 10 images just to choose one. It takes at least a couple of minutes, giving, say, 6 seconds per image. Basic math, I mean, that type of thing. But I can work all 10 for the next Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, here's a thought too, and I think I would actually prefer this, and maybe this would handle Jordy's comment, is that, so take those paintings and work with them during the week. And then when we get to this part, the first thing we'll do is we'll call on people that have, that have done this work during the week, and we'll go through, what you came up with. And if you could have like, an image of the painting ready to share so that we kind of, see what you were seeing. And and I think this is better anyway, because that, all this wants a lot of reflection. A lot of this wants multiple tries, and especially if you can take it to an honest to goodness personification where, the first ones may only be partway there. So, your comment on this, Jordy, is just totally appropriate. And it's like, and I think that's the way we'll get our best work. But I know when I was talking with Jan, she said, well, what you're going to find is that if you give like homework assignments, you're going to get there and people aren't going to have done it. But really for everyone, find paintings, images, whatever does it for you, and do the work. And then when we do this next time, we'll do the people that have done the work on things in between the week first. And then we'll, and then we'll go on to, maybe a shared one. And maybe the next time the shared one, we'll just kind of, generate the narrative or the story throughout it.
Cool.
If that works for everyone.
Yeah, and could I just say something, to any Quakers that are listening, I very much appreciate what they bring. And in a sense, it's connected to what Jordy just shared about too much. And so, just these Quaker kind of meetings, it's just something that it's very different paradigm of a kind of a meeting. And I'd like everyone to know, Quakers have an office in the United Nations because they are so adept at peacemaking and such. So it's just that I'm, trying to figure out a lot of stuff, and I very much appreciate Quakers. Thank you.
Beautiful. How are we on time? Should we wrap it up?
Yeah. I have a question. Like, how do you guys analyze your own dreams? Because I do have problems with digesting and analyzing it and all these symbols. And as a layman, again, I'm trying to look up in dream dictionary, which is, I don't know if would it be true or not. Some of them I could find it in some of the books of Jung, but there's just so many symbols that comes up, and I find it very hard to analyze my own dreams if there is any, because I don't always dream, or as my analysts say that I dream, but I forget about it. But it's just hard for me to dream. But whenever I do, I try to analyze it, but it's very hard to analyze sometimes because of the symbols. Closest I get is just Google it and on Dream Dictionary, which that's the closest I could get.
Yeah, Greg can go.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, Craig, go ahead and answer that, because I think you need to invite her to the dream group.
Yeah, Maggie, we do. If you go on YouTube, you can see how we amplify some of those dreams there. And if you have a particular dream that you'd like me to amplify, I mean, I'm not that I'm the greatest at it, but I've probably done 4,000 dreams over 15 years, and I mean, I worked with a really good Jungian analyst who was very good at doing an amplification, but I can help you. Only I would amplify it as I would amplify my own dream, but it would kind of show you what we've got. Some great dreamers here, by the way. Ivan is a great dreamer. Charles, Gary's a great dreamer. Kevin, I've done several of his, but anyway, yeah, if you want to send me a dream, and if you're okay with sharing it, we could, after I send you maybe an application, it's up to you. Sure. We could find out what other people, if they have some ideas on. Sometimes in our dream group, which lasts about 90 minutes, we only get through 3 dreams.
Yeah, it's
because we spend a long time on each one, but
yeah.
Anyway, so you guys can figure that out. You could send me a dream, or what you'd have to contact Gary or Adam if you wanted to do something in the participation side, because that's totally up to them. This half of the dream or the group is there. It belongs to Jan and Gary and Adam right now, and of course with the input of however they want to handle the input.
Okay, thanks a lot.
And I just add quickly, there is 2 websites that is of Jungian analyst online, which is a good starting point. It's called realdreaminterpretation.com. She's a Jungian analyst.
Real dream interpretation, okay.
And there's another one, it's also a Jungian analyst, which is called jungstop.com.
Jungstop. Okay.
.com. And those two sites, yeah, so this really good introduction. There's a lot of books, like free books on archive.org. I can give them later, but for now it's just those two is a good starting point.
Big thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, by the way, Jan's images are so beautiful. If you guys want to do more work on them, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Jordy, did you have something to add? Oh, okay, you had raised your hand, but okay.
Kevin, can you put the links in the chat?
Yeah, I'll write it down now, but I don't know if it's gonna go away. But yeah, I'll do that.
Or email it to us in the email.
Yeah, I'll email to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Concerning dreams, I gather that there's maybe quite a variation on the interest and the experience of the participants here. In my particular case, I didn't dream work when I was on, so to speak, on therapy. And often the meaning of the dreams to me was quite obvious.
I do experience, I rarely dream, but there's like whenever something like significant happen, and I think my unconscious is suddenly calling me to wake up about something, and it would just happen, and it's quite disturbing sometimes, just not knowing what it is, especially I know it's of significance, and yet not able to analyze it in a way that my psychotherapist has been helping with me on that, because I know that it's like a significant dream. Like there are a lot of dreams that might not be of big significance, but there are some that I just know that is, like one time when we were working on shadow work, when we started, and I was listening to Jessie Norman, a Black operatic singer, which I love. And she has the most excellent voice in the world, like golden velvet, okay? And she was singing Ave Maria, and I was sleeping and listening to it. And when I fell asleep, this lovely Jessie Norman, very classy Black woman, suddenly turns into violent in my dream and attacking people. And I wake up kind of disturbed because she always hit me as, as someone like really classy and singing in such an excellent voice that is mesmerizing, to me at least. It's like golden. So when I go back to my psychotherapist, she say, "Oh, this is your shadow," and blah 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 blah, and and it takes away the judgmental side of myself. And this is more easy to interpret, but there are times that just like there one time there's like there's a big abyss in the middle of the ocean, and I was looking at it. It's like so attractive, I want to jump into it, but my psychotherapist say you shouldn't because your ego is not strong enough, and that is obviously your unconscious is opening up. And I say, but I don't understand. What we are doing is trying to pull the unconscious back into the conscious. And if my ego is not strong enough, but it's opening up, and I find it very attractive, why can't I jump into it and dive? And then in her worries on her look, I kind of sense that she might worry that I might get into neurosis or something like that. I don't know. That's my gut feeling. She didn't say
that's a prime one for personification and active imagination, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't
So
know
there were
if
dreams
you're,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can also set up a dream session probably at a different time. I'll see what Hong Kong is versus the US. And
Sure.
see if I can come up with a time. Maybe we
No,
can do
I
an
think it's
extra
better
session.
at your discretion and your free time, because I'm not working now, so I'm just free.
Okay.
So can be.
Okay, sure. Well, I will. If you could come up with a dream or two, I can just show you examples, because I'm just going to show you what an introverted intuitive who went through Jungian analysis would do. Now, that doesn't mean that is the end all be all of dream interpretation, but that's what someone like myself would do. But I just to show you, and then you can tell me where I'm wrong or so whatever. But yeah, but I will let's set something up, Maggie.
Thank you.
I will or you can just send me a dream too,
Sure.
and I'll start to work on it.
Sure. Thank you.
Can I
Thank
just
you.
check? Sorry,
Yeah.
can I just check in? I had intended to try and check into the dream, and now I'm not sure. Is it not an open group? Do I not have a link for that?
No, it's completely open.
Okay, okay.
It is yeah, you can come anytime. Yeah, I mean anybody can come.
And it's at 7 o'clock
7 o'clock Chicago time. Yeah, I don't know what is that about.
Monday.
Yeah, so on Monday, 7 o'clock Chicago time. So that's like almost what 1 o'clock in the morning in the UK, or
Yeah, I might not make it, but I was thinking about it. But anyway,
yeah.
thank
Well, we
you.
could maybe. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to butt in. I just wanted to suggest, I've suggested this before, but anyone interested on dream interpretations should go on YouTube and look up The Way of the Dream documentary. It has Von Franz in it. It's like 8 hours long, packed with information, and it would give you a lot of really good material and help on dream interpretation. Just want to
There's
throw that
nothing
out there.
like interpreting your own dream, though. I mean, when you interpret your own dream, it's just like, I mean, then you get bitten by the young bug. I'm
Oh, you would.
telling you, that was what brought me into it. Is doing dream work, my own dream work, because then I realized the psyche is real. It wasn't until I started doing that I really realized that I'm not the master in my own house, because all my dreams were saying that anyway. But anyway, well, we'll start next time, and unless you got any more, Gary. Yeah, okay, and just Gary and Adam and everyone will inform us what's going to happen next time in the last half of the group. But I think it's just so wonderful to get personality number 2 going in our own heads for just a few seconds. Every don't you think, Gary? I mean, you can define it any way you want, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I think that's the point. The point is that it's one thing to study it and stay in the head, and it's another thing to, hey, let's go ahead and get our feet wet and do the work.
It feeds my heart. I tell you, I mean, this did feed. Just looking at the images that Jan sent was a healing experience for me. And then if we could talk about them a little more, I would be like in heaven. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much, Gary and Adam and Jan. I know they're not here, but I will send the chat and everything later. And of course, you got any comments or something, just forward them to either Gary or Adam or Jan. And next time we'll start in chapter 2. I might throw in a few things from chapter 1 because there's so much here, but I think it would take 6 weeks to go through it. But next time let's just do the one on the difference between spirit and soul, and maybe the rest of chapter 2. But this is where Hillman is so valuable, because do you really know what spirit and soul are? I really didn't until I started reading Hillman, the distinctions between it. And now I think I have a feel for it. But anyway, so we'll see you all next time. And Jordy, I love your new look too. Your new look is very nice.
Thank you. I had to change 3 times the barber.
Oh, I know, but you look much more youthful. Not like Zorba the Greek anymore.
They didn't want to cut my beard. They said it was perfect. It was too cool. I don't know the English term.
Too cool for school, or
See, something like that. It was
Yeah.
totally hipster. It was the hipster archetype
Yeah.
beard.
well, it makes you look 15 years younger. really
And
does.
the next step is I'm going to shave completely.
Okay, and happy birthday, Charles.
Thank,
I think he's his
Thanks.
30th birthday.
Yep.
Happy birthday.
Way to go. It's all
Happy
downhill
birthday
from
to
here. Okay, well, we'll see you guys all next time, and thank you so much, Gary. It was beautiful. Okay,
All right, see
bye,
everybody.
Ivan,
Thank you.
and Maggie and everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Greg,
Kevin.
Adam. Thank you.
Ma-